Welcome to Bridging the Gap to Connections, the talk show, where we begin by sharing your stories and spotlighting your shine. Hello, welcome back to Bridging the Gap to Connections. I'm Darla Williams here, I'm the host, and today I actually have a woman named Julie. Julie Cyvonne? Is it Cyvonne or Cyvonne?
Cyvonne like calzone.
Oh, okay, there we go. Is a former lawyer turned psychedelic facilitator, breathwork practitioner, and certified coach who helps high achieving women move beyond burnout, anxiety, and disconnection. She blends the science of micro and macro dosing with integration and nervous system regulation to create lasting transformation. Julie's mission is to help people reconnect to themselves, trust their intuition, and create lives rooted in ease, clarity, and confidence. Julie, welcome to Bridging the Gap to Connections. And I am super excited to have you here. Before we jump into the question, I want to find out, can you tell us a little bit about you as a individual?
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me, Darla. I'm super excited to be here today. So I guess the Julie that, my friends know or my mom knows, I have two cats and a dog. I'm a very involved pet parent. I love my animals. Well, right now where I'm at in Kansas City, it is fall and the leaves are falling. I love the seasons. I lived in San Diego for 5 years, but I really missed being closer to home and I missed the seasons. So I moved back to the Midwest early this year and have really loved it. Even though people may say, why would you leave California? To me, the seasons and the cyclical nature of life is really beautiful and important. And to see that reflected in nature, because I know we all go through different seasons of our life. I love yoga and I love to read. I read all the time. You'll usually find me with my nose in a book. And I'm a little bit of a homebody. I can be like a bubbly, extroverted person, but I really enjoy being home, quiet time with my animals and books.
That is beautiful. I'm an animal person too. They all gravitate to me constantly. They come and find me. So I understand. Oh, so I'm looking over just some information that we exchanged. And one of the first things I want to ask is what inspired you to leave your career as a lawyer, guys? She was a lawyer and step into this work with psychedelics and integration. How did that begin?
Well, it honestly probably began when I was 6. My dad died, and that just really like turned my life on its head. And I started to experience some mental health issues, as one might imagine. I love my mom. I really believe everyone is doing the best they can with what they have. That's just something that, like a lens I live my life through. And I think it helps us a lot, like in forgiving people and trying to see people, as human beings, flawed, obviously, as are we. But, she didn't provide like therapy or we didn't really talk about feelings in my house. So I had a lot of feelings. I had a lot of things that were coming up and I didn't have knowledge, language, tools to understand or work through them. So looking back, I can see now that I started to experience anxiety, depression, dissociation, and panic attacks. And this is something that would continue through. I really got bad with the panic attacks like in college, and I continued to have some really intense dissociation all the way through law school and into practicing as an attorney. And ultimately, I went to law school and became an attorney because I had lived my life trying to emotionally regulate and please other people. I lived my life on eggshells. I was a people pleaser. I was like a good little girl. And, that's what I thought people wanted from me was to become a lawyer or some other profession that had like accolades attached to it. And so I did. But my depression and anxiety got to the point where I just really couldn't ignore it anymore. And I really believe like life is a river, and the river, the water might be God or universe or whatever like you identify with personally. And I believe that water is pushing us toward the path of our soul's highest evolution. Now, you can be a salmon. We all have free will, right? You can swim upstream. You can be a sticky starfish and cling to a rock, but the water will keep rushing. And when you feel like life is, lifing all over you all the time, not just in like, a hard season, but like a hard life, a hard decades, it's time to slow down and think, okay, maybe my attachment to what I think I should be doing is not actually serving me. So the wave came, I got knocked off the rock, and there's so many things that I could go into that happened right after the pandemic. When I moved to California, I took the California bar. I passed the California bar, but because the pandemic started, my law firm never ended up opening a California office. And I was like, what am I doing out here? I don't like being a lawyer. I now have this bar, and the company that I was going to work for is no longer opening. I heard this podcast, and this woman I had been listening to for a while, and she said, hey, do you want to get certified to be a coach? And intuitively, I just said, yeah, I do. So I got certified to be a coach. I had kind of one foot in, one foot out of the law. And then, despite doing a lot of good work on myself, I was still really struggling with some remnants of anxiety and depression. And that's how I found psychedelics personally. And I was so blown away by how effective they were, how fast they were, and when done with integration practices, made sure that those changes actually stuck. And I was like, this is it. Like, this is my special key to unlocking, why I haven't been able to feel good. And people were so interested in what I was doing and how I was talking about it that they kept asking me to coach them on it. And so I pursued psychedelic facilitation in addition to my coaching, combined the two. And that's what I've been doing for the last 4 years.
That is a big pivot. I mean, what you just said, that was a massive pivot that you took. And that alone could have been overwhelming. But with the fact that you were realizing the importance of the integration with plant medicine, I mean, that really probably helped that transition, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest things I credit psychedelics with now is how strong my mindset is. Like at the end of the day, you really have to be strong of mind to get through life in general. I don't care if you're making a big life transition or not. Like if your mind is telling yourself a good story, then life becomes exponentially easier. And so the story I have inside my head, well, like not always perfect, is pretty darn good. And that has allowed me to navigate a lot of different changes. And then just in general, in the work that I'm in, there is a lot of pushback, right? There's a lot of stereotypes, misinformation, you know, blatant lies that are told about psychedelics and plant medicine that I have to really have a lot of fortitude and like be my own lighthouse in standing firm in what I know to be true and educating in a way that is welcoming to people, right? Because there are lots of people who, say things in a way that makes you feel talked down to or condescended or like they're right and you're wrong. And it's really important for me to maintain equanimity and kindness and love as I speak about all of these things.
If you could help the others out there that are listening right now in regards to the misconceptions about psychedelics and misdosing, that what is it that you wish people understood more?
I was a Dare kid, so I do get it. I signed the Dare pledge, but everything that you heard growing up, I can almost guarantee about psychedelics is a lie, right? Like they're not going to scramble your brain. You're not going to jump off a building thinking you can fly. These are all scare tactics that were primarily pumped out by the CIA. You can look all of this up. It is public knowledge. It's been declassified. There's an experiment called MK Ultra where the CIA was dosing people with acid, and when it didn't have the intended effects, then they decided to make it a Schedule One substance. It's so interesting to me that psychedelics are a Schedule One substance because they're the only substances that have basically no ability to kill you. The toxicity is almost zero versus things like alcohol, very high toxicity, right? Which is not a Schedule One substance. Obviously, anyone over 21 can easily obtain alcohol in this country. And when done with proper set and setting, when you're controlling for those factors, meaning like you're going into the experience with a good mindset, you're in a safe environment, you're being intentional, you're being guided, you have everything set up and primed to have a good experience, your possibility of having a quote unquote bad trip that we hear about so often in popular culture is almost negligible. So honestly, we do have people feel like it makes them so out of control, but you have a lot more control than you realize over like the direction of your trip and the overall experience of it when you enter it from a space of intentionality.
Oh my gosh, that is just amazing. I am so glad that you're bringing the education to the public so that people really do understand. Um, if someone is curious about microdosing, how do they know if it's a good fit for them?
Yeah, well, I'll be honest, I don't think that microdosing is for everyone. I don't think anything is for everyone. That's why I sort of get like annoyed in the Instagram, TikTok sphere because people are like, you have to do this in order to do that. I don't subscribe to that at all. And to be honest, microdosing isn't for everyone. There are some people for which microdosing is just simply not the right not the right fit. And I've created a really quick quiz. Like, honestly, it'll take you less than 2 minutes to do. But if you go over to my Instagram, Julie Cyvonne, Cyvonne, all one word, no periods, dashes, spaces, and just DM me the word journey, it'll send you the quiz right away. You can take it and you'll know whether it is a great fit for you, whether it's totally not the right fit for you, or there's more room to explore.
How exciting. To know whether or not something is for us and having that little blueprint you've put together to help people to see, I mean, that's really comforting. Being an outsider looking in onto your world, that's comforting, knowing that you're going to say, if it's not for someone, you're not going to be like, here, take the bill. You're not going to like push upon others. We have, that great look of life. They talk about it in the Matrix. Do you want the blue pill or the red pill? We may or may not need the therapies. Some people do, while other people don't. I do have an off question from some of the things that we talked about. And the question is how much do you believe in your research that say someone who is struggling with readapting after trauma, when looking at that, how much would you say actually helps in the stimulation to shifting and being able to rewire after trauma?
You know, the biggest thing that I'll say is it really depends on whether or not you are willing to experience it differently. And this is why I say that there are some people who experience a trauma and they are like, you know what? I know that that wasn't my fault, but I am committed to like working through this. I am committed to like forgiveness, not for them, but for myself. I'm committed to living a life of radical responsibility. And there are some people, I mean, I knew someone who was just so committed to ultimately being a victim and to saying like this wasn't fair, why did life deal me these cards, like, and they were just so this the constant story was like this is not fair, I didn't deserve this, why me? And if you're not willing to shift and to think, okay, it might not have been fair, but or and I want to see this differently, I want to experience it differently, like unless you have that, nothing is going to help you. I don't care if it's psychedelics or anything else. So that's a big red flag, green flag for me and who I choose to work with. Because if you're in a victim mentality, nothing's going to help you because you won't let it.
Exactly. That's what I wanted to address, because some people think it's a quick fix, being that it's a new, therapy. Some people think it's a quick fix and it's not. And that's, I wanted someone that has some experience in there to actually uncover that so people can see the truth behind. Yes, we can redesign and reprogram ourselves. However, can we actually redo it if we're stuck in our thought system? No, we have to break the pattern first. And that's what you're saying. We have to come through and break the pattern first and begin that setup for ourselves to be able to grow again. And I love what you just said. That is just amazing. So, my next question here is how do psychedelics act as a bridge between disconnection and deeper self trust?
You know, it can be really hard to trust ourselves when our Regina George is really loud in her mind. And that Regina George is that voice, that's what I call her, that says, you suck or you can't do it, you're not worthy, you're not deserving, you're not enough. And everyone has that self-referential voice in our head. It's a function of a series of internet connected structures called the default mode network. So what psychedelics do is they take blood flow away from those structures in the DMN, the posterior cingulate cortex. They redirect it to other areas of our brain. But when that voice has quieted down and it's not, nagging us, then we're able to have a bit more confidence in our actions and how we're moving and what we're doing. And ultimately, the only way to build self-trust is to say you're going to do something and to follow through with it, right? And that can be as simple as like maybe you have some money stuff, you have some money issues, right? So you avoid your bank account. Well, if you take the deep breath and you open up your bank account and you get an honest assessment of things, you start to both A, renegotiate your relationship with fear, but B, learn to trust yourself because you know that there's an adult present in the room. And when I say an adult, I do mean you, like you're the adult of your own life
Exactly.
and you're taking that driver's seat position back, right? So you start to build self trust over small little things like that. And then it grows into self trust where you can make big moves, even moves that people feel like that doesn't make logical sense. I don't understand why you're doing it. And you can say, like, you don't need to understand. I got it. I can do it. And regardless of whatever consequence may follow the action, because every action has consequences, I will be able to hold that consequence and deal with it as it comes.
Exactly. Oh my gosh. I love what you're doing, hun. I want to say that. I want to say that I absolutely love what you're doing because you really are bringing true education to others. You are establishing a space where people are safe. They're able to
Thank you.
begin building a rapport with themselves and expound on who they really are and actually dive deeper into the realization of how incredible each individual really is. Most people
Thank
don't
you.
get that understanding, where they're fighting through the mind and what's happening and what happened to me and the memories of this and the thoughts of that. But bringing plant therapy on board when you are in that place that can handle that and when it is right for you, that's really you're opening a door for people to expand and become the highest version of themselves. And that's a beautiful thing. And it looks like that's what you've done for yourself. And in that, you couldn't help but give it to others.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I really like even when I first started microdosing for myself. Well, first of all, thank you, thank you so much for that reflection and your kind words. And it was not my intention to start doing this like as a profession, but it just became so undeniable that that is what people wanted, and that's what I was quote unquote supposed to be doing. And I'm so grateful for all the ways that this has impacted me. One of my favorite journeys that I took, I have these facilitators that I love back in California, and I came to them for one of their ceremonies because I really believe in not only facilitation but being facilitated for. And in the journey, I had this deep experience of self love, and I struggled with self love for most of my life, and it wasn't this feeling of like, oh, I'm so great and it wasn't ego, it wasn't like boosting myself up like, you're number one. It was a true like soul level, I love myself, I love who I am, how I show up, how I treat people, the way I move in the world. And that is like, I want that for everyone. And I want everyone to also get to a point in their own like integrity. Because I also will say I lived a lot of my life out of integrity, right? Whether it be gossiping, being a mean girl, lying, things that just that they do chip away at your soul, but you can get your soul back in integrity. It's never too late to do that. So to experience that, I felt like not that I'm perfect, not that I don't still make mistakes, but I can own up to them. I can take ownership, and integrity is one of the biggest things that I've gained through this process.
I really agree with you. As an intuitive transformational life coach, I totally agree with what you're saying there. If people do not know how to one acknowledge where they're at, or begin to identify what is, what the steps are to take the next steps and then become radically responsible, how are they going to do anything? Really, that's just in general in life itself. We have to begin to take those steps. So I completely agree with what you're saying, Julie. And I am so grateful that you are doing what you're doing and that you did step into yourself, even unapologetically, as well as, taking the risks of what would people say or do for what you're doing. You stepped out of your own way and took the steps to be able to help bring a way for others. So that is really a great thing that you're doing. Um, if there is one thing you want listeners to walk away with, what would that be?
Oh, wow. If there's one thing I would love listeners to walk away with, I feel like my life really started to expand to a new level of good, of bliss, of joy, of abundance when I both learn to discern my intuition from fear, strengthen my relationship with my intuition, listen to, and then ultimately follow it. And again, I'm not 100% on this, but I will say about 90% of my life, I am intuitively led. Sometimes, I do let the rationality like pull me back into that lane, but my life looks better than it's ever looked because I can listen to my own inner guidance. I know the difference between it and fear. And I'm really tapped into that and trusting and surrendered to it. So everyone has an intuition. And if you're feeling like I really don't know what the difference is between intuition and fear, I guess the first thing I would say is like if you're feeling a lot of emotion around something, if you're having that heightened emotion, that is not your intuition, right? The fear is something that kicks in to your it kicks in your nervous system. It kicks us into fight or flight. It causes that rush of cortisol and adrenaline. And the things that come up for me in my intuition, they're very neutral. They just are. It's almost as if someone said, like, "Well, you pass the salt," and I felt the salt, and then you pass it on. It's not this like rush of anything. So I hope that people open themselves up to listening to that inner voice because we all have it, and it's so powerful, and it wants you to win. Your intuition wants you to win.
That is the absolute truth. When you're saying that our intuition wants us to win. So, I mean, do you guys hear that? Anyone out there listening, Julie is saying that our intuition, when we really fine tune ourselves and dive deeper into who we really are, and we actually get connected to the soul self and the soul being of who, we can't be separated from anything. We are part of source. We're just the droplet walking in the earth. So as we know who we are, and when we begin to understand and discover that, this is honestly an alternative way to begin diving deeper into the recesses of that soul sacred knowledge. We all have it. It's written in our code of our DNA structure, but are we actually diving into it and actually learning who we really are? We all came into this world with a master plan. We're not separated from that. And when we know who we are on an internal level, that we cannot be separated, that if we did not have source in the DNA structure, we'd actually pixelate out and literally dematerialize. But because that is living within us, when we tune into that, we can actually then fine tune the rest of our life. We actually then become the director of our life. And the experience that we really want to live can actually begin to project out there. But the only way we can do that is when we finally really fine tune into ourselves. And that is what Julie is offering, is a space for you to begin fine tuning you and knowing how to begin walking out your life to your highest timeline, living your best life. I mean, who doesn't want to live their best life? I mean, really. So I do have a couple more questions before we end. The next question I do have for you, if there is, no, I'm sorry, what transformation have you witnessed when people begin approaching their lives more intentionally?
Well, I just want to say I love what you said director, like become the director of your life. I always say like get in the driver's seat of your life. But yeah, I mean, so many people are like they're not even in the passenger seat. They're like in the trunk and life is driving them, right? And like you can like it's your car. You have the keys. You can sit in the driver's seat and use the steering wheel. I promise. But I also get it, right? Like I was in the trunk for a long time, and no one wants to kidnap me. I promise. Um, So yeah,
Right.
when you live your life more intention, I mean, maybe I kind of answered the question, but backwards. It is like you get in the driver's seat, you get the steering wheel, and one of the biggest things that someone got, ooh, what's a good one? I just recently wrapped up with a client. We had been working together for about a year on and off. She had gone through one of my programs, a live round of a program I run, and then took a few months off and came back to my one-to-one work. And she texted me, we just wrapped up, and she sent me this message and she said, I was thinking about it and I realized everything on my vision board from a year ago has now come into fruition. Everything that she said she wanted a year ago, she created. She manifested. She drove the car and went to, your internal target and she got it. She put it in her cart, she checked out, and then it was there for her, right? So that is just such a beautiful. She actually inspired me because I'm not a big vision board person, but I was like, girl, I'm gonna go make a vision board, and just because it is right. It's kind of like a vision board is one of those things where you don't move the goalpost. Because for so many people, it's always like, oh, yes, I got this, but now I want this. And having the vision board is such a clear of like, oh no, like look, there are these things, and I did accomplish them.
Exactly. Oh my gosh, I love that. Driving, being in the driver's seat of our own life. We do need to be that person, to stand up, to realize who we are and understand that we are in charge. It is us who makes decisions. It's us who does the things. And when we really tune in to who we are, we can actually begin realizing, do I want to be that person anymore?
Yeah.
And do I want to change or do I like who I am? And if I like who I am, how do I expand that and make it more? So really what you're doing, Julie, is such a great resource for others. And I'm super excited that we've had this opportunity to chat about it. Where can listeners learn more about your work and get connected to your resources?
Sorry, I did never answer your question directly, Darla, but I just love the questions. I love what you say. And I just wanted to say to someone who feels like I broke up with this guy one time because he looked at me and he said, I am who I am. And I was like, wow, I do not believe that at all. It hit me like a gut punch. So I do want to say I used to be a person who was frankly like not a girl's girl. I was a liar. Like I was all these things that I really didn't like. And I had to get in the driver's seat of my life and say, like, I don't have to be those things. Those things are not my soul. Those are adaptive behaviors I have taken on to try to navigate an uncomfortable life thus far. And I chose to be someone else. I chose to be loving. I chose to be a girl's girl. I chose to have honesty and integrity. And I really don't think this life is one of like becoming anything. I believe in free will. I believe this life is one of creating. You are creating your life, you're creating who you are and who you want to be, and none of that is fixed. So, for anyone who feels no, I am a bad person, for example, you're not. Maybe you've done some things that you're not proud of, but you can make different choices moving forward and take ownership of what you've already done. So, I'll get off my little soapbox. But anyway, for people who want to connect with me, you can find me, like I said before, Julie Cyvonne on Instagram, JulieCyvonne. DM me the word journey if you want to take that quiz. You can find my website. It's the same words, juliecyvonne.com. You can learn more about microdosing, larger experiences, all of those things. But I'm very friendly. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. And thank you so much, Darla, for offering me this conversation to have with you.
It has been a wonderful experience, to be able to speak with someone else who really does understand how it has actually transformed your life. Can you, before we go, share one moment that you are grateful for in your own journey so that people can see Julie and how this has really helped you? I know I put you on the spot. You didn't know it was coming. I love to do that.
Oh, I mean, the funny thing is, is that I have a very like deep gratitude practice that is like every single day, and there's so much in my life to be grateful for. I'll share one that happened recently where my mom and I, she's my only parent. I love her, but we're somewhat alike, but we're also super different. We look alike, but we're very different like personalities. And for a long time, I had prayed for my mom and I to have a deeper emotional connection in a relationship. She's just not as emotional as I am. Um, or outwardly, right? Everyone has emotions, not everyone emotes. And I prayed for that. I mean, I feel like I've prayed for it probably for 2 years. Like every single day. That was one of my I'm grateful in advances. And then recently, I decided, you know what? I'm gonna pray for acceptance. I'm accepting our relationship for as it is because I keep praying for something and I kind of get my feelings hurt every time it doesn't happen, you know? And then she came to see me for her birthday, and that time we spent together, I felt more emotionally connected to her, and we had more honest conversations than we really ever have. And I was like, okay, like we're quote unquote getting somewhere, but I had to release my grip on the need for that to happen in order for it to happen, and I'm really grateful for that.
Thank you so much for sharing that because I know that there are plenty of people in the world right now that when they hear that story, that maybe if they just release, that maybe something different can come forth and bloom from the seeds that are planted in our gratitude. I am super excited to have this time with you, Julie. Thank you so much for being on Bridging the Gap to Connections. This is Darla here. We're signing off. Bye for now. Until next time, make sure that you watch, share, and subscribe and find people who actually need Julie's service and make sure that you direct them to her. I mean, how are any of us going to actually rearrange and heal the things that need to be healed within us if we're not connecting to those who can help lead the way? Until next time, bye for now.